We definitely had fun at the thrift store, and I know a new way of making money now, and that's showing up at the thrift store with the truck.
Chequearon porque yo le dije a ellos lo que me pasó, entonces ellos me chequearon.
I guess some people would consider these like serving trays, I would believe sometimes they would be used for. I know in college we used to use them for different things.
All of these pieces relate to the title, riots and rallies, parades and protests, and each of the words in the title have their own definitions, and they're almost like a Venn diagram, the way they overlap and yet are different.
Yeah.
And you're dealing with the public in these artworks, crowds of people, and as we know, people act very differently in crowds than they do as individuals.
Oh yeah, definitely. Like I'm trying to capture that herd mentality, that pack mentality. Like it's definitely us going back to kind of like our animal nature. People are similar as far as like, you know, especially when you're getting riled up, you get these people to have some type of thing to go against or claim as the other. Also, kind of like, you know, it's tribal. Schools and football teams and stuff like that. They get their team their fans wants to kick the other fans' ass. I'm influenced by a lot of different mediums of art. Musicians make an album and it may have a theme, and that theme may reoccur in 2 or 3 albums later, like Blueprint Part 5 or something like that. Or also like directors and movie directors they have to cast members, they have to create environments and settings along with telling the story, and that helps create the full picture, I believe. And also it's kind of like comedians, they have to go and travel to different places and do shows. Sometimes they have to do different materials. They may do 8 sets a night, and by the end of the night they may be doing totally different material because it's just something that has developed during the time and being in that space. So I like to try to carry that work method and work ethic within my artwork as well. Part of the reason why I started working on collage one is because I'm naturally a recessive artist. Like I take away stuff. So I could take away, like I can work a stone and make a sculpture out of it like that. But then when it comes to like adding and building out in 3 dimensions, even in sculpture, it was hard for me to kind of like wrap my head around it. So originally I started trying to work with collage, which helped kind of like fix my brain to be able to kind of like start working out like that. Similar to like how the DJs and musicians work, where you can lay down a track, take a little bit of Miles Davis, put a little from DMX in there, and then like, you know, have a whole different song. I try to do the same thing with the artwork, where I'll pull certain things, certain images. I'll use different materials and lay those things on top of each other and layer it like a. And I go back to say kind of like a layered cake, and that's why I could refer to my work as a layered cake. Is because like not only are there multiple layers of like materials of paint that's laid on top of each other and edited to be one piece, the ideas and the thoughts and the references are also very layered. I recall the Rodney King being one of them. When Rodney King verdict came out, one of them was the Cowboys winning the Super Bowl. Probably 2 or 3 of those because they won multiple times, back to back a couple of times in the 90s. And then also the State Fair of Texas. They have the State Fair of Texas in Dallas, and that's where a lot of the riots, those were probably the craziest ones that I've ever seen. You know, after the fair closed down and they kick everybody out and the streets just become mayhem. Like,
So, you know, in one case it's joy and celebration.
right.
Marches, parades, noise making.
Right.
And then in other instances it's anger and frustration and violence.
And it's funny how they can switch and turn so fast. Like, you know, you're thinking you're being there just to kind of like you say, celebrate the Super Bowl, and then the next thing you know, there's police that are lining up with shields and pushing the crowd a certain way, and then the crowd pushed back, and then there's things being thrown, and then it just becomes like chaos, like in a switch of a second.
The artworks to me capture both because the colors are exuberant and the gestures are big and sweeping. I can really imagine you working on larger pieces like murals and really getting to extend your body. I mean, these look like the gestures are going way off the page.
Yeah, and also I definitely tried to choose certain colors that kind of like are hot. Like I like metallics and things that reflect light. So that's what you see a lot of times too. Like during chaos, like light is a lot of the things that's always kind of like, you know, you see the police lights that come, the cars that are either stopped in traffic. I mean, you know, I would say Freaknik is a couple of them that I've been in Atlanta that was kind of crazy too. Like, so it's not just been Dallas, Texas. It's been Atlanta that I've seen a couple of them too, and been in a couple of.
And certainly in 2020.
Yeah, 2020. It's funny how like this body of work, I started it a couple of years back, but I knew it was something that was going to be happening. You know, like, I guess it's just kind of like I've been called to kind of like address it or talk about it.
It's coming through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And not only that, like, you know, sometimes I need to make some work that says something. You know, it's hard to see on the white sheets. Well, that's from one of my favorite movies, Django. Quentin Tarantino's country western about a German settler that gave a black slave his freedom by pretty much deputizing him and making him a cold-hearted killer. And there was a scene where the Klansmen are getting ready to lynch Django and his associate, and they have a nice discussion before they head down the mountain. And it's one of my favorite scenes in one of the, you know, in cinema to me, where the Klansmen can't see because of the hoods that were made. But in the end, they decide to go down the hill anyway because the horses could see. And so that's a real deep, very, 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 very deep scene. You really have to really look at it and rewind it and look at it and rewind it and look at it and rewind it and look at it and rewind it again in order to really see what is really being said. Because you have this group of guys that decide that it's best for them to be blind when they're going to do some dumb shit. You know, and that's what a lot of I see what's going on. Like, people know what's wrong and what's right, but instead they rather just have one hole in a sheet to look through, and then know and say that they can't see, but don't care. Instead, they'll just ride the fucking horse with the pack.
And you used a white sheet to cover the flag.
Yeah, that white sheet is actually kind of a reference to the Confederate truce flag too, which was the flag that they waved when they gave up the fight, which probably had some holes in it too, burned holes. And just so happened when it draped over that flag, it looks just like a Klansman head on a stick.
You had a job refurbishing furniture,
Yeah.
and it's interesting that the furniture pieces show up in your work a lot. Especially that shape at the top of this piece.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny how my first job after college was working at Fabulous Things, and I met some cool artists there, and we would sit there in the shop and buy new furniture and beat it up and make it look old, and buy old furniture and refurbish it and make it look kind of newer. And so we would get all these bits and pieces of furniture sometimes and have to put them back together like puzzles. And then we would be collaging and decoupaging all of these little pieces. It's funny how things come back around. I used to have to sit with a X-Acto for 8 hours, cutting out little flowers and cutting out little, you know, fish and birds to place on these buckets that we sold to Las Vegas. Yeah.
You were saying that the top looks like a Hercules.
Yeah, the top definitely looks strong. It looks like, you know, somebody like flexing, you know, like baby fat, all oiled up, like Lou Ferrigno, one of my favorite bodybuilders, and the Incredible Hulk. Yeah.
And that's a perfect symbol for America.
Yeah, definitely. And
America's strong.
yeah, I think subliminally that's why you see it a lot in a lot of places too.
It's also a symbol of colonial architecture.
Yeah, colonialism, colonizing.
You picture a lot of women in these works.
I try to, at least from my perspective, I do definitely think that a lot of the movements start with the women. I'm gonna say that the women are the bone. Like the women, it is the women. It is the woman is the cause, the reason why we get a lot of change, because a lot of us men, we just kind of dumb. Like the men are this a lot of times.
What do you mean?
Like we're the people with the hood and just rather ride blind and just follow somebody that we would even claim to be a stronger man, but even knowing that that man is wrong, like, you know, it's the women that are the ones that usually fight against it, that start the fight, and that have to correct the men, in my opinion. So I've seen it with the movements that have happened recently. I think also with the civil rights movement. I think Rosa Parks should be like one of the top, if not she is the civil rights movement. You know, not to belittle any of the other people, but I just feel like she should be the top. She is the top. The Black Panthers Party, the women that were in the front line, also some of the men, you know, because that is definitely one of the larger, more profile protests that happened. That was definitely one of the times that black men went into the capitals with guns and were respected and left the place in one piece. Yeah, AstroTurf. One is like I just like the way it looked. I think it reflects light and also absorbs it. But AstroTurf is definitely a material that I will probably continue to use because of the many uses that it is used in sports, also in making your house look nice. I remember you used to put those green turf on the steps and shit like that. We had it on our steps for a while. A lot of black males feel like sports is their way out of the neighborhood, and sports is the way to get their parents at home. So it's definitely speaks to black culture, turf. But then also kind of like, you know, like those sports also speak to the slave trade and the greens that we used to have, the fields that we used to have to tend and stuff like that. So it's a way for me to kind of like play with materials and get ideas out there that I just don't have to blatantly say, you know. And that's why definitely there's turf behind this suitcase that's holding the head of a Klansman. My mom has a dog collection that's like ridiculous. Like I probably couldn't sleep in that bed. Actually, I slept in that bedroom before, and it's weird. Yeah, the doll bedroom. She worked in retail for a while. She was a display manager, so she did a lot of window installations and using mannequins and like all different types of floral arrangements. Both of my parents definitely influenced my art. Like my father, he always had a camera, so I know that's where my photogenic side comes from. And I use photographs a lot in my work too, or source materials from photographs that I take. The stencils that I use come from the photographs, and it also allows me to kind of use a print making method too, because I can reuse these stencils and like print out a whole lot of different editions almost, but not so much editions because, you know, I just need to use the image more than once.
Are you pulling from current events, or are you getting images from the internet?
I use it all. Like I use pictures from the internet. I use pictures from Google Maps. I use photos that I use. I collage a lot of those images together and break them apart and put them like. Also, I try to take what's important, you know, the things that I feel like are important, and capture those, finding a little piece of it and then reintroducing it in the different context. That's the way I try to approach the work as well. Like a little piece, something somebody else may be able to make it better than me. So why would I recreate it? But then I can maybe take what they maybe had or even discarded and use it in a different way to kind of like tell a different story. When it's finally brought together in a full room like this, you can see the cohesiveness of it. A lot of times I have an intention or at least certain intentions with certain things that I do lay down. Like it may not be the strokes and all of that other type of stuff, it's natural. But
Improvisational.
yeah, improv, happenstance, happy accidents, you know. I love that type of stuff. But then at the same time, and I don't want to know what the work is gonna look like when I'm finished. I don't wanna know. I'll know when I get there. And I usually do, you know, but it is a process of building and destroying, building, destroying, taking away, adding, laying things on top of each other, laying ideas on top of each other, covering those ideas, and then having some of it exposed through the layers.
Your murals are very much like these works, and you know, murals have a place in the public, literally.
Mm-hmm.
Do you distinguish between the works that are for a gallery and works that are improvised for a mural that's 5 stories high?
I usually do. I try. I know when I'm dealing with public art pieces, I'm having to deal with the community and other people are involved. So it is a give and a take when I'm working with that type of stuff, which I don't have a problem with because that gives me an outlet or a place where I know that the public also has access to my work. And I think that that's a blessing. One of my professor's sculpture is right around the corner from where I live. And now I have 2 murals that are like right there around his. So I feel like I'm just trying to do the same thing that he did too, as far as like have access to artwork, because even as a child, that's what influenced me, especially growing up in Dallas. Dallas, Texas, North Point Mall is a fucking museum. I mean, it's the Nashers curate the artwork and the sculptures that's inside this museum. The actual mall itself is a piece of artwork. It is like, and I remember growing up as a child, like seeing these huge, like 2-story sculptures in the middle of the mall, you know. And so
It was open to the public?
oh yeah, I mean it's a real mall. It's like a mall that has like, you know, all of your mall stores in it, but throughout the entire mall. And this mall is like, it's huge. It's a huge mall. So, but they, in the middle of different like intersections, they have just the baddest fucking art that exists. Like, you know,
Thank you, Texas.
sculptures. Oh yeah,
They did
yeah.
something right.
Oh yeah. Dallas definitely is on point when it comes to like that type of stuff. Like, oh yeah. I mean, it influenced the type of work I like. It's the reason why originally I was a minimalist painter, and it's funny like
You
that.
were
I'm
a
yeah,
minimalist painter?
yeah. I mean, that's
Are you
when
kidding
I was
me?
at ACA. That's all I was trying to do and stuff like that. So, but it was because of my influence from, you know, like Ellsworth Kelly is still one of my favorite artists to this day. Robert Irwin is another artist that is a minimalist, but I fucking love. Like, he's one of my favorite artists. So Donald Judd, we was talking about.
His birthday was yesterday.
Yeah, I saw that you told me that. Awesome. And all of them aren't accessible though, because I know the 5-story one is at a pool at this apartment complex, but it's cool because you can see it from the road across the tracks over at the goat farm, and different areas and angles you can still see it from different places.
I mean, it's
which is kind of cool.
monumental.
Exactly, you know. Which I like too. Like, you know, it's not like a secret location, but it would be cool to do a mural at a secret location. And then I've done some in like for CBRE at their office, our axis, and so only the people that work there. But then that's cool because the people that work there get to hopefully they think my artwork is cool, and they get to see cool artwork every day, you know. And because of the way I layer my stuff, hopefully every time they go past, they'll find certain new little things that they didn't see. Like I put a MF Doom shout out to on one of my murals, and you know, people loved it.